Today I'm going to be rebuilding a carburetor on this vehicle. This is a 48 Willys Jeep pickup. It has a Ford 302 engine from a 1972 Torino. I had to dig up the casting numbers to find that out. So the first thing we do is pull our air cleaner off to get to the carb. So to take this off, I'm going to disconnect the fuel filter first. This has just a little clip there. Just grease clamps, you just squeeze them with a pair of pliers and push them back out of the way. And there we go. I'll just leave that line connected for now. Pop the throttle off, accelerator. The transmission kick down has a what we call Jesus clip on it. Now this is what they call, this is what they call an E-clip. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not. We always call them Jesus clips because a lot of times they go flying off and you yell, "Oh Jesus, where'd it go?" And half the time you'll never find it. Vacuum line's got to come off. The vacuum line for the PCV valve in the back here has got to come loose. I could just pull the PCV valve with it, but it'll be in the way when I go to do the rebuild, pull the carb apart, so just leave it here. You got one wire from the electric choke, disconnect that. And let's see, that's all I see. I don't see more vacuum lines. Sometimes you'll have 2 vacuum lines, sometimes you'll have more. It just depends on the vehicle application and all that, and what accessories are on the vehicle. So to get her loose from the intake, you're gonna need a deep well socket and an extension and a ratchet. And that one came loose really well. Wouldn't hurt to have a magnet on hand, which I'll probably end up going and getting one, because sometimes you drop a bolt or a nut or something, you can't get your fingers to it, but a magnet. Well, now you'll see, sometimes you'll pull the whole stud out, sometimes you'll just pull the nut out. Makes no difference as long as you can get it back out and get the carburetor back tight. I'm going to be cleaning this engine up as I do this work too, so there's a lot of stuff on top of this engine where it's set for a long while. And there's the carburetor. This is a pretty heavy carburetor. It's a 4-barrel. It's got 2 float bowls on it. It's got a metering block, which we'll explain all that as we tear it apart. The gasket there. Now what I want to do, I want to put something in there to keep crap from getting down in the intake. You don't want, say, bolts or anything metal going down in there. You could cause damage to the pistons and valves, because all the air comes through here and fuel that mixes has to go through an intake valve, and you don't have a lot of clearance when that thing's open. So if something got in there and got stuck in the valve, it would prevent your valve from closing and cause an engine miss. Or if it went through, it was metal, if there's not enough clearance in there between the piston and the valve or whatever, you could do a lot of damage to the piston and the valve or the cylinder walls even. So for right now, we're just going to stick this down in the intake. I'm going to go ahead and take that gasket I just dropped. I got to match it up to the old part, to the new part that's going in. There. Okay, here we have our carburetor on the bench. There's our old gasket we'll match up later from the intake. And we got our parts container. So where I'm going to start with this one, I am going to pull carburetor bowls and metering jets off first. Now this Holley carburetor, these are loose as well. As I was going to say, the Holley carburetor is going to look, especially this one, different than what would have been stock. I don't know why my camera shut off on me. There'll be some gas coming out of here because it was run recently to get it here. So this bowls are going to be full of gas. So you want to make sure. There you go. I should have had something here to catch that in, but I'll wipe it up. The problem I have with this kit, this is a 4160. The only kit I could get, locally anyway, was a kit for a 4150. And the problem with that is, the difference is this metering block right here between the bowl and the carburetor body. The 4150 has two, one on each end. The 4160 only has one, and here they just have a plate. So I'm hoping, and we assume it will work this way, that the gaskets are going to work anyway. Most of the internal parts should be about the same. And I need to just tap that to break that gasket loose. You don't want to go overboard with tapping it or forcing it, because this is what they call a pot metal, and it's fragile. I mean, it's tough, but then again, there we go. You don't want to be breaking anything or beating it all up and making it look ugly. Now, in here, make sure I can get this. This is your carburetor bowl on the front side. You have your float, your needle and seat. What this does, fuel comes in this area, and when the float gets full, or the bowl gets full enough to its specified level, this float will raise up and shut fuel off from coming in. If that float gets something stuck in there in that needle and seat, it'll just dump fuel and flood all the time. The difference between the 4150 and the 4160 is this tube that goes from the front bowl to the back bowl. The 4150 has a separate line going into each one. This one has a tube that runs between them. And this metering block will need to come off. Make sure it's been a long time since I've done one of these, so I just want to double check. Make sure that I'm not missing something, trying to pull something off in it with a screw. No. The same screws that hold the bowl on should hold this on. There we go. They were stuck. And there's your metering block. Most carburetors do not have a metering block. They just have a float and the metering or needle and seat, and the jets and everything are in the body. These, you have your jets and your adjustment screw for air mixture on this metering block. It around and pull off the other side. This carburetor is in really good shape. The only reason I am doing a rebuild is this thing did sit for a long time. It does have some rubber pieces in there. I just want to make sure all the rubbers are not dry rotted. Replace the ones that it can. And after gas sits for a long time, it varnishes up and it'll cause crud and stuff. Crud build up in the float bowl, which could plug up a jet or something like that, so you don't want that. So just gotta do a kit on her and make sure she's ready to go. There are, as you can see there's fuel coming out of the other side of the float bowl, or the other side of the bowl here. This has actually two bowls. The factory carburetor would have only had one. You see there is another float and needle seat on this side as well.